crossed your path, yet you failed to recognize its true significance. Most of us are conditioned to believe that angels only manifest through blinding lights, booming voices, or undeniable miracles. But what if the guardian presence watching over your life chose a form so humble, so familiar, and so ordinary that you dismissed it without a second thought? An angel may be standing right beside you at this very moment, hidden in a way that almost everyone in this busy world completely ignores. This is why understanding this mystery has become so urgent for your spirit today. If in recent days an unexpected animal appeared out of nowhere, acted in a way that felt different, or stayed close to you during a moment of intense pain, fear, or deep emotion, I want you to know that was not a random occurrence. Choosing to ignore these small encounters could mean you are missing a specific divine message intended only for your ears. Don't look away from this truth right now. What you are about to hear may finally explain a lingering feeling you've had, something you've sensed in your soul, but haven't been able to put into human words until this very second. Nothing in this universe appears by sheer accident. If you have found your way to this message right now, it is because something unseen has already been moving in the atmosphere around you. In the spiritual realm, the concept of a coincidence simply does not exist. Instead, there are only silent miracles unfolding in the places where human eyes usually fail to look. You, as a chosen one, already understand what it feels like when life suddenly grows heavy without any warning. You know the weight of battles that are incredibly real, even though they remain invisible to everyone else around you. In those moments of trial, heaven does not usually shout to get your attention. It does not force itself upon your will or demand that you acknowledge its power. Instead, it acts with a quiet, intelligent, and surgical precision. Today's message is not about sparking fear or feeding into old superstitions. It is entirely about gaining clarity. You are going to understand exactly how angels signal their presence, and why they frequently choose to use animals instead of grand visions or celestial voices. This knowledge will completely transform how you interpret the random events of your recent past. There is one specific animal that is repeatedly connected to angelic protection and divine proximity, and its spiritual meaning is far deeper than most people ever realize. I am going to reveal exactly which animal that is later on, at the precise moment your spirit is ready to receive it. But before we go any further, I want you to do something very important for your own alignment. Like this video, subscribe to stay connected, and comment the number 99 below. In the spiritual world, 99 represents completion before fulfillment, the sacred moment just before heaven acts on your behalf. By typing that number, you are signaling your readiness, your alignment, and your awareness to the universe. Stay with me, because what follows will explain things your soul has already sensed, even if your mind couldn't name them yet. You see, heaven does not compete with the noise of the world. While society expects signs to come in flashes of light or thunderous interruptions, the spiritual realm operates by a much more sophisticated intelligence. Angels avoid the spectacle not because they lack the power to show off, but because grand spectacles often trigger human fear and resistance. Fear has a way of closing the soul, and loud noise often overwhelms our internal sense of discernment. Heaven's primary goal is never to shock you into submission, but rather to reach your heart without breaking your spirit. That is why when angels draw near to comfort or protect you, they often choose the most disarming path imaginable. They choose something soft, something familiar, and something that does not demand a complex theological interpretation. Animals carry a special kind of permission to enter our personal space because they don't argue with our logical minds. Animals don't challenge your personal beliefs, and they don't ask you to explain your shortcomings. They simply arrive, and your heart responds to their presence long before your thoughts have a chance to interfere or build up walls of doubt. This matters deeply for those who have been chosen for a higher purpose. When a person has been wounded repeatedly by life, or when disappointment has piled up like a mountain, the mind naturally builds defensive walls. These walls are not built out of rebellion. They are built out of a basic need for survival. Words often bounce right off those defensive walls. Even traditional spiritual language can start to feel heavy, exhausting, or even empty when you are in the middle of a storm. But presence is fundamentally different. Presence does not ask for your permission to exist. It simply sits beside you in the dirt. It breathes near you in the dark. It waits patiently for you to notice. Animals carry this presence in its purest, most unadulterated form. They aren't strategizing their next move or pretending to be something they aren't for the sake of appearances. The natural innocence of an animal creates a direct bypass around your mental defenses, allowing peace to reach the deep, locked places where pain has taken up residence. This is exactly why, in moments when you feel emotionally closed off or spiritually drained, heaven doesn't send a long lecture or a complex explanation. It sends companionship. Animals function as perfect bridges between the physical and spiritual realms because they exist without any inner conflict. They aren't split between fear and faith or logic and intuition, the way humans often are. Because animals move in total alignment with their instincts, they are incredibly sensitive to spiritual shifts that you cannot consciously perceive. When the invisible world draws near, or when protection over your life intensifies, animals respond naturally. Their calm behavior in a crisis is not an accident, and their timing is never random. They carry peace not as a spoken message, but as a direct transmission of energy. You don't have to figure it out, you simply feel it. Your breathing slows down, your chest loosens, and your thoughts finally begin to soften. Heaven uses these gentle creatures because wonders make people talk, but animals make people feel. Feeling is the key that opens the door that logic keeps locked tight. For a chosen one, this sensitivity is critical because your calling requires you to perceive subtle shifts rather than chasing after loud, flashy signs. Heaven knows that if it thundered every time it protected you, you would eventually become dependent on external proof instead of internal trust. Therefore, it teaches you discernment through the small, quiet encounters you might otherwise dismiss. Here is an unsettling truth. When an animal appears at a strangely specific moment, it is often because something invisible arrived in that space first. The animal is not the beginning of the story. It is the response to a presence that was already nearby. It is a response to a guardian watching over you and adjusting outcomes that you haven't even seen yet. This means that the sudden calm you felt didn't actually come from the animal itself. It came from the spiritual force standing behind that animal, silent and intentional. Think about the moments when time feels fragile, the quiet grief after receiving bad news, or the weight in your chest when you wake up feeling exhausted before the day even begins. It is precisely in those moments of isolation that an animal often appears. You didn't call for it and you didn't plan for it, yet it arrived exactly when your internal strength was at its lowest point. The timing of the arrival is the real message. It is heaven saying, I see you in this valley and I am here. Consider how often this happens during times of deep grief. When a relationship collapses or a dream dies, an animal often crosses the path of the brokenhearted. A cat might sit beside you without a hint of fear, or a bird might land nearby during a prayer that you could barely whisper. Logic will always ask why now, and try to label it as a random coincidence. But your soul recognizes a different truth. You are being accompanied. You aren't being rescued by the animal, but you are being reminded that you aren't alone. When a person collapses emotionally, advice usually feels invasive and explanations feel hollow. Heaven understands that speeches don't heal a shattered soul. That is why it sends steady, silent companionship instead. Animals that refuse to leave your side during an emotional breakdown are not being stubborn by chance. They are remaining steady by divine design. Their refusal to walk away is not a simple animal attachment. It is a spiritual assignment. They stay when people don't know what to say, and they linger when your mind is spinning out of control. Timing is everything in the spiritual realm. Animals don't usually show up as signs when life is perfectly comfortable and stable. They appear when something inside of you is cracking open and your defenses are down. That is when heaven moves the closest, not necessarily to fix everything instantly, but to anchor you so that you don't slip further into total isolation. The most powerful part is that you don't even have to believe in this for it to work. Your soul responds to the peace before your mind has time to object. If protection increases during these unseen moments, then every perfectly timed encounter carries a deeper question for you to ponder. Was the animal there just to comfort you, or was it there because something much more powerful was already standing guard? There is a spiritual war that rarely announces itself with alarms or warnings. Most people assume that spiritual danger would feel like panic, but the truth is that the most intense battles happen quietly while your life looks completely normal on the surface. Heaven does not wait for a disaster to strike before it begins to act on your behalf. It moves before the threat even becomes visible to you. It acts before the wrong door opens or the wrong conversation takes place. Because the intervention happens so early, you might never even know what you were saved from. You might just feel a strange delay or a momentary interruption in your day. An animal crossing your path might be the very thing that slows you down and prevents you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now we come to the revealed truth. The animal most consistently linked to angelic proximity and vigilant protection is the dog. This isn't just human symbolism, it is rooted in behavior that reveals divine intent. Dogs represent a steady, quiet vigilance. They are uniquely wired to sense atmospheric shifts before danger becomes obvious to humans. They position themselves instinctively between the person they are protecting and the perceived threat, even if that threat is completely invisible to our physical eyes. They are the sentinels of the spiritual world. When these encounters happen, the behavior is unmistakable. These animals don't arrive looking for food or attention. They appear without explanation, often from nowhere, and they hold space with a discipline that feels almost supernatural. They aren't there to be pets, they are there on assignment. Once their role in your specific moment of need is complete, they often leave as quietly as they arrived. They aren't meant to be a permanent part of your story, but rather a divine punctuation mark within it. The correct response to these moments is not obsession, but simple awareness. Don't try to overanalyze the event, but don't dismiss it either. Pause and acknowledge the timing. Offer a quiet word of gratitude to the universe, recognizing that you were not alone in your hour of need. This simple act of acknowledgement strengthens your connection to the divine and sharpens your discernment for the future. It keeps you from missing the next subtle signal because you've trained your heart to stay open. You are never alone, even in the moments when you questioned everything. What you once called coincidence was actually protection moving with intelligence and love around your life. You are a chosen one, and you are guarded in ways that don't always draw a crowd. Carry this awareness with you as you move forward. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to comment "I was protected." To affirm your faith, walk with confidence today, knowing that heaven is much closer than you think. Would you like me to help you explore more signs of spiritual protection in your life?